In this animation, we're going to be building a short film from a whole collection of assets that I created and have supplied to you. Last summer, I made a short film called Showdown, and it's a Wild West showdown between a classic hero and a classic villain in the most epic battle of rock, paper, scissors that one can imagine. And we're going to be using all of those assets to learn how to physically assemble a very large short film that includes a lot of assets, a lot of animation, and an opportunity for us to learn a tremendous amount about cinematography. We're going to be bringing all of these elements into Blender. And with animation files, it's not uncommon for us to have an animation file that's been supplied to us by an external animator, and that animation given to us in what's called an FBX file format. The FBX file format is great for animation. It's really wonderful because not only does it contain all the geometry, but it contains the rig and any sort of keyframes that have been applied to the rig. We have a lot of options when it comes to geometry on how to share files between applications or different rendering engines. The FBX file format, however, continues to be one of the strongest, if not the strongest, file format for us to exchange animation data between all the different apps. Let's go ahead and jump in and start building the animation, and then we'll build the set and start looking at how to film this wonderful short film. Let's get rid of our little cube here. The FBX file format is a third-party app, a third-party file format, so it's coming from another app. Actually, it came from Blender, but oftentimes out there in the real world, there's a lot of other apps that can produce animation. Maya, 3D Studio Max, Cinema 4D. These are all industry standard apps that do a great job at working with animation. So since this is a third-party file format, we're going to choose the import button, not append. Animation, FBX files, are going to be imported in. Otherwise, not appending. Just keep that in mind as we go through this process. So we're going to choose File, Import, and you can see the FBX option down at the bottom half of the list. I apologize if I'm slightly in the way. When you import a file, of course, naturally it's going to bring open the good old Blender Finder. So let's just navigate to where I've stored all of these assets on my computer. And here it is, Wild West Showdown. Inside this folder, there's a bunch of stuff, including the 2 FBX files that we're going to have for each character. It's not uncommon to have each character be in their own FBX file. That way we can manage, render, and edit these files individually. Let's start with the hero. Let's bring it on in. And voila, it's a big file. So just be patient with it for a second because there's a lot of data. And here's our character. If you look carefully, there's a lot that's happened. Of course, we have our wonderful hero, our cowboy hero. And if you continue to look at the details here, it's got keyframe data on every single frame of our very long sequence. This was a legit short film. It's almost 3 minutes long. So there's a tremendous amount of animation data that we're going to have to work in within a very large sequence. Not only does it bring in all the animation data, but it also brings in all of the armature and skeletal data as well. So if we expand this hierarchy, yep, here's the action itself, here's the armature, here's all the geometry that makes the character happen. Everything is there, which is pretty great. I want you to be mindful of the name of the character. There's a lot going on, and the name is assigned by the FBX file format. This is just called the root. Since we're here, let's give it a good name. We'll call this Cowboy Hero. Ta-da! He is a cowboy and he's a hero, so it's an appropriate name. That way we'll be able to manage this file very individually and very directly going forward. We've got a villain character as well, so let's go in and start getting that villain in here. So same process, File, Import, and of course we're going to change FBX or select FBX. And there's the villain file. Let's get this one in. All right. And the villain isn't too similar. The idea behind this was to make a short film all with the same base character mesh. We're going to change the color of the villain from green to blue, just so visually we have something a little bit different. Okay, so we got both of these characters in. They have a very similar structure. Let's name this villain character. And I'm going to, instead of doing cowboy hero, I'm just do cowboy character. There we go. All right, so we have a little bit of a challenge here. Each of these characters are in. All of their information is there. They're all animated. However, if we go to this particular frame, I'm on frame 573. You can see that the characters are kind of facing the wrong way. A challenge for us. Ideally, I want to have this entire animation, this entire sequence happen down the middle of our scene. The y-axis in Blender is the depth axis. In every sense, this green line represents the foreground and the background. So this is the front of the scene, and this is the back of the scene. The compass is going to give us a tremendous amount of information as to where the front and back is. The negative y side of the grid is the front of the scene, and this is the back of the scene. So in every sense, I want to have my villain character be in the back and my hero character be in the front. With all these keyframes on every single frame of my animation, we have some challenges in this. Let me show you what that challenge is. I'm just going to grab the armature of my villain character here. And as you can see, he's like resting up against a post, and then he walks out and turns. Well, if I wanted him to be facing kind of this part of the scene over here, you know, ideally it'd be great just to be able to rotate him like 90 degrees, right? And maybe even change his position so he's right on that center line. That would make me as an artist, my life a whole lot better if everything's kind of lined up. However, the challenge is that we have a keyframe on every single frame. The auto key system and the structure of us keying is not going to work, unfortunately, because now check it out. Even though I had keyed that in, yeah, it's not going to work. So here's the best way of doing it. I'm going to go to frame 1. And we're going to make a small little system here. And I think this is going to work out pretty well because I want to have one object that's not keyed. I want to be able to control the rotation and the location of both of these characters at any given time within inside the film itself. Having a master controller that's not keyed on every single frame will give me a lot of flexibility. So let's do it real fast. I'm in object mode. I'm going to hit Shift A, and underneath my cursor is going to pop open a menu where I'm going to go into the empty section. And I'm going to add in an empty plane axis, which is just a fancy way of saying there's a locator. And what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to have this locator be the parent of one of my characters. In this case, since we were doing villain before, call this one villain controller. Let's do master control. There we go. And so we're going to parent the villain character to the villain master controller. Now, the way that we do this is through the armature. We're going to select the armature, and the fastest and easiest way to select the armature is just to grab one of the bones that are sticking out the front here. If you're in object mode, you're going to select the entire armature. You can always go back over into the outliner and grab that root bone as well. It's 6 to 1, half a dozen to another. We want to grab the object, though. We don't want to grab the actual bone component itself. We're going to do this parent-child relationship, this simple connection between two elements at the object level. The selection order is critical. So we've got to make sure that we select the armature object first and then our plane locator second. So it would be the villain master control. Still in object mode, I'm holding down the shift key and just grab it inside the viewport. And now we can make the parent-child relationship. There's a couple different places that we can make this parent-child relationship. If we go into object, and I got to remember where it is in here. I've just had there it is, parent. It's in the middle of the list, and we're going to do object, parent object, okay? Now, what this has done is that it has created a control locator that allows us to move this character around, okay? The animation still works, but now I can move my villain wherever I want it to be. I can rotate this character 90 degrees and get my villain chilling where I want my villain to be chilling. All right. So this is now going to be controlling the placement of my villain character somewhere right around there. And because it's not keyframed on every single frame, I don't have to worry about messing up the animation, and I can place my characters where I want them to be. Okay, let's do it one more time. Shift A. We're going to do the exact same thing, but this time, as one might imagine, we need to have a cowboy master control. And we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to grab the armature of the cowboy, hold down the shift key, grab the locator itself. You could go into that object pull down menu. Here's another way you can do it. Just do Control P, which is set parent, and you can just choose object parent from the thing that pops open underneath your cursor. All right, because now, check it out. I have something that controls my cowboy, which is pretty great. You can rotate this. -90. Yep, here we go. And now I can create my classic showdown. Bum, bum, bum. They can battle each other inside of this epic environment. All right, here we go. So this is how we work with animation files. We don't want to work on the objects that contain all the keyframes because we could mess something up, which would be horrible, right? Our animators have spent a tremendous amount of time, as you know, building these animations. However, as a layout artist and as a cinematographer, we need to adjust the location of our characters to create the compositions that best serve the film. And this is how we do it. Now that we have the animations in, we've created a small little machine to control the rotation and the location of our characters. It's on to build the sets.